Hey guys, it's Sherry Vegas, and in this tutorial today I'm going to be doing a complete beginner's guide to making tumbler cups that look just like this. So to start with, you're going to need to get yourself some tumbler cups. I prefer to get metal tumbler cups over plastic, as resin adheres a lot better to metal than it does to plastic. I also like to use insulated tumbler cups because resin can only have so much heat, around 60 degrees for most resin. So if you're putting a hot cup of tea in that, it can slowly over time affect the way that the resin is on the tumbler cup. So if you want to have a cup that lasts really long, get one that's insulated as well. Prepping your tumbler cups is super important if you want the resin to adhere to it. So you need to give them a sand back. I just use some 400 grit, and then I give them a wash with just some dishwashing liquid, just because I want to get rid of any fine sand dust particles that I might have. Then if you want to, you can tape your tumbler cups off, just so that way you don't have resin going into places that you don't want. But taping isn't a requirement if you want the resin to go the full surface of your tumbler. Depending on your design, you can tape either before or after giving your cups a spray paint. You want to use a spray paint that can adhere to metal, and this is just to add a base color before we start adding our resin on top. If you've never worked with resin before, you want to look for an art resin that's also food safe. This particular resin that I'm using today comes in a 1:1 ratio. So 1 part is resin and 1 part is hardener, and when I mix those two together, I get the chemical reaction occur, which then will start to set my resin. Just keep in mind that different brands might have different ratios. Sometimes you get a 2:1 resin. You want to make sure you also give it a really good mix, because both A and B do need to properly combine for that resin to have that chemical reaction that will cause it to set. To make life easy on yourself, you want to get a tumbler cup turner. Some people do this by hand, but honestly, it's a lot of work. The reason why we use a turner is because the resin needs to be in constant rotation while it's still curing. If you don't do that, you'll find that all your resin will drip off one side. But if we keep our cup constantly turning throughout the process of that resin gelling and curing, we're not going to give the resin a chance to pour off one side, as it will be constantly in motion. For the first tumbler cup design that I'm doing, this is a glitter ombre tumbler cup. So all I'm doing now is adding the resin that I've mixed up. You can get away with this tumbler cup about 30 mils in total, so that's 15 mils of the hardener and 15 mils of the resin mixed up to make 30. You can do a little bit more if you want to, but for our first layer we don't need a lot of resin. Some people do add their glitter on with Mod Podge or other glues. I personally like to use resin, one, because it is super sticky and the glitter just adheres to it perfectly, and two, I'm not going to have any issues with the next layer of resin having a funny reaction to the glue that I've used underneath. I'm adding this pink chunky glitter at the top of my cup, and this one is just from Cellar, and I'll add the link down below. And then I'm going to be adding a really fine black glitter on the rest of my cup. I also like to place a little bit of paper or baking paper underneath my cup to catch any extra fallout of my glitter, so that way you're not wasting all of that glitter that falls out. You can just pour it back into your container with your glitter. When I'm happy with the pink glitter, I just go back in and add my fine black glitter to the rest of my tumbler cup, creating my ombre effect. If you wanted to, you can do this in 2 different layers. I prefer to do it in one just because it saves me a bit of time and resin, but some people will do 1 layer of just black glitter, let that set, go back in with some clear resin, and then just add the pink ombre on top. It's honestly up to personal preference on which one you want to do. You want to leave your first layer a minimum of 4 to 6 hours. Honestly, most of the time, I just come back the next day to do the second coat, because if you do it too soon, you're going to affect the first layer underneath because the resin hasn't fully set. I'm using 50 mils this time, and I'm being really careful with not disturbing the glitter too much as I apply this second coat. You might also notice that my tumbler cup turner machine has changed to a single one instead of my double one. The double one that I was using ended up breaking halfway through applying my first layer of glitter, which was really annoying because I had then had to spend the rest of the time while that resin was getting to that gelling point turning it manually. The reason why it broke is because it's designed for American power outlets, even with an adapter in Australia. It was the wrong voltage and it ended up short-circuiting out. I really like it, so if you're in America, go and check out my Amazon. I'll add the link down below and you can buy it there. But if you're in Australia, I'll add one that is made for Australian power points. But honestly, the double one shouldn't be getting sold on Amazon Australia if it cannot work in Australia. So that was a little bit annoying. But anyway, what I'm doing now is I've left that resin to fully cure for 24 hours. I've gone back in and given it a really light sand, give it a wash again to get rid of that dust from the sanding, and then I just give it a spray of alcohol to disinfect it. Then I can add my second coat. The reason why you need to do all of that prep in between your layers of resin is you need to have something for your resin to grip to. So by giving it a light sand, it adds a little bit of tooth and gives it something to grip to. I did end up having to do 3 top coats just because the glitter was a bit uneven. So if you are going to be working with glitter, just know that it generally takes anywhere from 2 to 3 top coats because you have that chunkiness of the glitter that you need to cover with the epoxy. For this second cup, we're going to be using a few different colors. I've just used some resin pigments and mixed that into some more of my resin. And you can see that I'm using 5 colors here. And then I'm going to be applying that all into 1 cup and then pouring that over my tumbler. Now you can obviously just do a base color of just 1 color, so pink, and then just apply the other colors on top. But I just wanted to do this way to get a little bit more of that marble effect. But don't feel like you have to do this. You'll still get a very similar effect without doing a dirty pour. And then you just want to pour the resin out onto the tumbler cup and it will start creating that really beautiful marble pattern. You do need to use more resin than what you normally would if you were just doing 1 color for a coat, because you can't use your hand to spread that resin out across the tumbler cup because then it will just blend all of those colors in together. So you do want to make sure you have double the amount. So if it takes you 50 mils normally just to do 1 color, you'll probably need 100 mils to do it this way. Or you can just do the 1 color for the base coat and then add the different colors of resin on top like I'm doing now. This is just going to add a bit more definition and a little bit more detail to my marble effect. You can add this however you like because as the cup turns, it's going to keep creating those really beautiful patterns and keep making that marble effect. A lot of art resins take around 24 hours for them to fully cure, but you don't need to keep your cup turning for that long. You just want to wait until your resin is no longer in its liquid form and has started to set. So when there's no possibility of it dripping off to one side, you can turn your turner off. So I normally like to wait anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. I find is really good amount of time to keep my cup turning. Something to be mindful of, because of the shape of this tumbler cup in particular, you do have that peak and then you have it going sloping down, and that's going to create the resin to pull at the bottom of your tumbler cup. So if that's something you don't want, you want to go for a tumbler cup that's pretty much straight up and down to stop that resin from pulling all into the one spot. Now all I'm doing is just removing my tape before I do my top coat. I used a Stanley knife just anywhere that there was a little bit too much resin where the tape didn't peel off cleanly, and then I'm just following all of the exact same steps that I did previously to prep my cup before adding a top coat of clear resin. You will get bubbles in your resin, and the best way to go about that is by using heat to pop them. I like to use a blowtorch, but you can also use a heat gun. If you do use a blowtorch, you want to go really lightly over it and really fast. Don't hold it in one spot for too long because that can burn the resin by accident. I like to wait around 24 hours to 48 hours before I do finish off my tumbler cups. I'm just getting the resin out of the inside because I didn't tape this tumbler cup up, and it's really easy to do so because I've done no prep work on the inside, no sanding, so the resin won't be able to stick to the metal. So all I've done is gotten my Stanley knife, cut a little bit, and then it should all just peel off quite easily. If you've only got little bits of resin on the inside, it's a little bit more work. If there's any sharp edges left from the resin, I just go along with my Stanley knife or some sandpaper really carefully and just take those sharp edges off, making sure I'm not scratching any of the inside of the cup. Or if you want to, because you don't want to use a Stanley knife, you can just tape up the inside of your cup with some painter's tape. So I've done that one on this cup, and also too, if you did get any spray paint on the inside of your cup when you were prepping them, you can also use some acetone to get rid of the spray paint on the inside of the cup. But you can see my painter's tape has peeled out quite easily. But if there are any little areas that just really stick, you can always go back in with a knife or sandpaper and just get rid of those. And then once you give them a really good wash out, they're done and you can add the lids to them. If you have any questions about creating your own tumbler cups, feel free to leave that in the comment box below. I'm always happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. Or if you have any ideas or any tutorials that you want me to cover with tumbler cups, any designs that you want to know how to create that, then I'm always happy to do so. So feel free to leave any questions or any ideas that you have in the comment box below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. It really helps my channel out. And if you are new to my channel, I do lots of different videos all to do with resin art, alcohol, inks, candle making, Jessmite. I cover all of those in my channel. So if you like any of those, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that way you get notified every single time I upload a video. But thank you guys so much for watching.